So difficult family members. Well, we all have them, don't we? I have yet to meet anybody who says, no, everybody in my family is totally perfect and wonderful. We've never had any conflict or any issues with them. Right? Not a brother, an uncle, a sister, a son, whatever it is. It's like, people have interpersonal conflict. And often, there's someone who's just hard to get along with and strongly opinionated or whatever it might be. Sometimes we have these family members who are just always in your business and asking you what's going on and asking these uncomfortable questions. Why aren't you married yet? Why, where's my grandchild? After you haven't did like just all the kinds of questions you wouldn't ask. They sort of run over your boundaries, regardless of whether you set them appropriately or not. People who make demands on you, pressure and guilt you, expecting you to do this, that, or the other for them, or for somebody else, and really just don't have a lot of respect for your needs, your individuality, or just the ones that are like, unpleasant, mean, making nasty comments, whatever for their own reasons. Everyone's got their own challenges, and no judgment on who we are and who's out there. Just we're gonna try to talk about how we can deal with those people in our lives in a way that leaves us feeling okay and strong and healthy, even though those people might be there. So one of the critical ideas that I want to put out there to begin with is that you are not responsible for other people's feelings. We often take this upon ourselves, and if someone else is upset at us, we assume or believe that it's our fault, that there's something we have to do about it. Obviously, if you go and punch someone in the face, then they're going to be unhappy. So I don't mean that you don't affect other people at all. I just mean that if someone doesn't like what you're doing, how you're acting, that may not be your problem if you are doing the best you can, if you are being respectful, if you are making choices for yourself. Right? Just because someone else feels hurt doesn't mean you've done something wrong. Just because someone else doesn't like your choice and maybe tells you so in no uncertain terms, doesn't mean it was the wrong choice. Right? There are big choices in our lives and small ones that we get to make for ourselves. So, whether you ordered this dish at the restaurant and someone else thought you should order that one, or you decided to break off a shidduch, which is a much bigger life issue, that may be your choice. So if your parents didn't like that you broke off a shidduch, that doesn't mean that you're responsible for their unhappiness and stress and all those things. You get to make that choice for yourself. If you have children, you have almost certainly encountered a moment where your parents didn't like how you were handling the children. Many people in the middle generation these days have their parents commenting about, well, when I was your age, and discipline and all those kind of things, and that doesn't mean that you're doing it wrong. And the fact that they're angry or unhappy or concerned, that's not necessarily your responsibility. You may, if you have a teenager, and I have rattling on you if you do, because I do, you may make decisions that your teenager doesn't like and gets very upset and calls you the worst and pouts and all these things. But that doesn't mean it's the wrong decision. And you're not responsible to make them feel happy or feel better. You're responsible to do the job you have. And as a parent, that means raising a kid. And as an individual, that means choosing your own shidduch. And as a parent, it means raising your children the way you want. It's not about making sure everybody else thinks it's okay. It's about making sure that you think it's okay. And one of the challenges that we have in doing that is guilt, right? I'm sure as Jews we're all familiar with that. Mom is great at putting that on. But it's not just what other people put on us in terms of guilting us to do this or that or not do this or that. It's also what we put on ourselves, right? We worry that maybe if they're not happy with it, then I have to make that right. If my spouse doesn't like my decision, I have to decide something different so they're not unhappy. But again, you're not responsible for how other people feel, so long as you're not aggressing against them. You're not punching them in the face. You're not being, passive-aggressive comments, or you're living your life, and if they don't like that, that's not something that you have to change. And the guilt that exists around that is something we have to notice and try to move past. You have a right to live your life the way that you want to, and you don't have to live your life the way that someone else wants you to or expects you to or wishes you would. So hopefully the way that you want to live includes caring for other people, but that's one consideration among many, right? So if your sister calls up needing help moving out of their apartment, so it's great if you would like to do that, but doesn't mean that you have to do that. You also might have parent-teacher conferences this week, and you're a little under the weather, and your son's play is coming up this week, and you need to make sure that you are eating right, sleeping enough, and are of sound mind, and that's also an important consideration. That's not called being selfish. That's you have to survive. You have to take care of yourself. And if your sister is angry that you can't help her move out this week, that doesn't mean you've done something wrong. And it's not really your problem to fix her anger. And I think that a lot of the problem that we face with difficult family members, right, this sister might be very demanding, selfish, obnoxious, whatever it is, or she may not. But regardless, a lot of the problem that we face with the challenging family members in our lives is that we assume that we're responsible to fix the problem and to fix their feelings, and we're not. If you were present for our exciting last episode with me here on the phone, we talked about setting boundaries and about sacrificing yourself for someone else's needs, and we talked about how you're not allowed to do that. If your life and your friend's life are at stake, your life comes first, right? So if your sister needs your help moving out, but you need to sleep, 6, 7, 8 hours a night, you need to eat a meal, you need to stay sane, that comes first. And there's no reason to feel guilty about that. When you are doing the right thing, then someone else's disapproval of that doesn't mean that you need to change that. Of course, how do you know whether you're doing the right thing or not? Right? So mom calls up, needs a ride from the airport, or, one of your kids needs the car this weekend, or whatever it is, and it's going to be hard for you. You'd like to be able to help them, but it's really hard. How do you know whether you push yourself or you say no? So obviously I have no easy answer. It's very much a case-by-case situation, but number one, you think about it. Number two, you consult with other people as needed. So you have to check in. Can I do this? Can I go pick my mom up from the airport, or is it going to overload me? Is it going to harm me? Is it more than I can handle? Right? If you're running on 3 hours of sleep today, it's probably not a good idea to go pick her up at the airport as much as you'd like. That's what Uber's for. You have to be honest with yourself, right? Can I do this? Can I not? Am I refraining from helping somebody out? Am I refraining from interacting with this family member because I need it and that's where I'm holding? Or am I doing it because I'm just lazy? I don't really want to be helpful. If someone calls you up and needs a ride from the airport, your friend, your family member, your nephew, whatever it is, and you can, but you're like, well, but I'm really enjoying sitting here, on this chair. It's very comfortable. I don't feel like getting up. Okay, so I can understand feeling guilty about, or bad about yourself for not wanting to do stuff. But if you're sitting on the chair because you're exhausted, because you're suffering from depression and you can't get yourself up, because your doctor told you need to rest more, like, great, you got to take care of yourself. And the fact that your nephew or aunt or whoever is upset at the airport, okay, that's not your problem. And fixing their feelings is not your problem. And when they come at you with, well, why didn't you and how could you, it's time to tune them out and, you decide what you're going to do about it, what you'll tolerate, and set a boundary. So if you have thought through your actions and decided this is the right thing, I need to sleep because I need more sleep today. I can't help you because I've been feeling sick and I can't make it worse for myself. Then you don't need to feel guilty. And you can set a boundary by saying, look, I can't, I'm sorry, and you won't let yourself get guilted into it. And if they have complaints about it, you can hear that. You can empathize, right? You know what, Dad, I really feel sad that I can't help you out today, clean up the yard. I know it's hard for you. I wish I could. And I'm sad that I can't both take care of my health and help you with the yard, but I can't. And if Dad chooses not to accept that, you may need to hang up the phone, right? If you're going to get cursed out or yelled at or whatever it might be, if you have thought through it and decided that you're doing the best you can, you're doing the right thing for you, you don't need to listen to other people telling you how bad you are. In fact, you shouldn't. That's also not good for you. So, checking with where you're at and knowing what works for you, getting some clarity on what works for you. I said also consult. If you're not sure, it's great to talk to a friend or a therapist or a Rav and say, okay, so, here's what they want me to do, and here's what I think I can do. I just want to check to make sure I'm not selling myself short. Like, could I help them? Could I push myself or not? Outsiders are often able to be more objective than we are. And we're worried that, maybe I'm a bad person, maybe I haven't done enough for them. And the truth is you're really doing the best you can, and your family member is being overbearing or difficult or, rigid. And, getting some outside perspective that, like, yeah, really this makes sense for you to do that can be helpful if you can't see it on your own. Now, of course, I'm not saying that you should never help your family or you can never push yourself. The point is that you don't need to do what they think you should do. You should do what you think you should do, and get advice from people who you believe in and care about. The people sometimes ask, well, like, does it make sense to even be around this person? Toxic family members, whatever it might be. So I never advise people at the get-go to cut off a family member. That's a big move. Especially in Yiddishkeit, we definitely believe in kibud av v'em, respecting and honoring your parents. And the examples in Chazal about, the extent to which the rabbis had gone to honor their parents is pretty shocking. But that doesn't mean that it's never the case that you should cut off a parent or a family member. There are some people who are really damaging and really difficult, and it's certainly not the kind of thing you do on a whim. But again, you talk to a friend, a therapist, or Rav, and decide what makes sense. Some family members, who have their own struggles, challenges, also people with severe mental illnesses, can be really, a weight on your life. So it's certainly not a first choice and not something to be taken lightly. But yeah, there are some times where that is something that you might have to do. And I definitely encourage consulting and talking and getting some advice when you do that. So the one main point I made was that you're not responsible for other people's feelings. And the other significance I want to add is that people are different. So, when mom calls you up and says, well, your sister, is doing X, why can't you do X? The answer is that people are different. So judging ourselves based on what other people do, or letting others judge you based on what other people do, isn't good for us. And we have to remember that, right? So maybe your sister, is doing a great job raising her 9 children, and you're struggling with your 2. But look, that everyone's different. I got 4 kids. I do not know how people have 9 kids. It's a handful and a half. And I try not to look at other people and say, well, they're doing it, I must be able to do it also. Like, I am who I am. I have my strengths and weaknesses. What your siblings do for Yom Tov doesn't mean you have to do the same thing. The amount of time that your family members spend with your cousin doesn't mean that you have to spend that time with your cousin or brother or uncle, whoever it is. Everyone's different, and you don't need to measure yourself by anybody else's standards or by anybody else's demands on you. You make your own decisions, and if you believe that you are doing what's right and you're doing the best you can, then that's what you need to do. And what family members demand of you should not be a main factor. Again, we all want to help. You want to help your parents. You want to honor them. But their demands do not determine what you do in life, and their feelings do not determine what you do in life. Because if someone's angry or upset or concerned, that's for them to work out and not for you to fix for them, because you can't. So those, I think, are the 2 points to hold on to, is that you are not responsible for other people's feelings, that people are different and need to be weighed by different standards. And of course, that there's infinite different variations of how family members can make things challenging for us. So we can open the floor to questions in a moment. I'm sure I'll hear a lot of, what do I do in this situation? Probably I won't have any great answers, but we'll take some principles and some guidelines. I don't purport to be able to solve people's problems instantly. That would be a great trick if I could. But hopefully we can weigh in helpfully in sort of the concerns and thoughts people have, and we can see if we can give some physics, some strengthening to folks who need it. So I will turn the floor over to the crowd.